Hey everybody, it's Mr. Marvin, and in this video I'm going to explain to you your second essay assignment. So I am recording this right after our second class meeting on Monday. Hopefully security does not come and break my door down, and I apologize for the lighting, but it is kind of the middle of the night, as you know. So I'm going to run through the assignment sheet here on the left. Hopefully you grabbed a hard copy of this on your way out the door this evening, but it is available in the essay number 2 assignment folder if you need it. So the first essay that we did that you guys are going to be handing in on Wednesday was a close reading assignment, and close reading means doing a rhetorical analysis of the audience, of the writer's writing decisions, how they use language to reach their audience and achieve their purpose. That is a skill that you'll want to keep in your toolbox going forward. The second essay that you're going to do in this class is a synthesis essay. It's going to be between 1,000 and 1,250 words. As always, do stick to the word count. It is part of the assignment. The point value for this essay is going to be worth 15 points. So that is 3 equal categories: content, style, and formatting for those 3 categories. 5 points each for those 3 categories, that is. As far as sources are concerned, I want you to use 3 to 4 quotes from 2 different articles this time. 3 to 4, as usual, is a ballpark. If you do a lot more than that, you're going to start to smother your voice, and if you do too few, you're not going to be giving your reader enough evidence to support your argument. The rough draft for this will be due next time we see each other on Monday the 30th. Try to have at least 500 words written for your rough draft, and as always, bring 3 copies of that. And then the final draft will be due as per protocol on Wednesday, August 1st, by 11:59 p.m. on Blackboard. So, context. To synthesize is to combine existing ideas to form a new idea. For our purposes, synthesis involves taking 2 or more seemingly unrelated pieces of writing and making connections between them. A strong synthesis essay will not simply summarize the article's similarities and differences, but demonstrate how their ideas relate to each other. This analysis will then serve as the foundation for your contribution to the topic, that is, your argument. Okay? So the big crux here is that we're dealing with 2 different articles, and you are trying to make connections between them. But it's not just about the connections in terms of pointing out what's the same and what's different. It's about using those connections to support your own point. So whereas with essay number 1, you were doing a rhetorical analysis of one article, and your argument was about that article and how it functioned rhetorically, your thesis statements going forward are going to be your positions about the topics that you read about. So, speaking of, our next 2 readings and next 2 discussion boards 3 and 4, both deal with technology and its impact on our lives and behavior. In Is Google Making Us Stupid?, Nicholas Carr discusses the implications of ubiquitous access to the internet. And in The Death of Reading, Mitchell Stevens questions whether our diminishing reading habits will ultimately harm our critical thinking skills. So these are 2 different articles from 2 different authors, but nevertheless, hopefully when you read both of them, you will start to see that there are connections between Carr's message and Stevens' message. Your job is to find and invent those connections, explain them to us, and then use those connections to help you make your own argument about the topics that are covered in those 2 articles. So, your assignment is to, in a coherent, well-written essay, synthesize Carr's and Stevens' articles. In doing so, analyze their ideas and how they interact, and then use this analysis to inform your own argument. Do not merely list similarities and differences between the 2 articles. Rather, find, invent, and demonstrate connections between them, and then use these connections to support your own ideas. So, most importantly, right? Remember how with essay number 1 I said don't summarize and don't paraphrase and don't reflect and don't tell me a story. For this paper, the big don't is to keep in mind that this is not merely a compare and contrast essay. Compare and contrast is a valuable analytical tool that you should know how to do, but comparing and contrasting means just pointing out things that are the same or things that are different. And that's part of this essay for sure, but it's not the entirety of this essay. So pointing out similarities and differences are fine, but you want to use those similarities and differences in service of conveying your own message. So hopefully that makes sense. Just like with the rhetorical analysis, you're trying to take your argument to the next level in the sense of not just telling us what they say, but in terms of trying to figure out how and why they say what they say and how it functions rhetorically. In this paper, you're trying to go above and beyond just comparing and contrasting and synthesizing, taking two articles that are separate, making connections between them, and then using those connections to invent and inform your own ideas, your own argument about reading, technology, Google, social media, the internet, whatever. Okay, any aspect that you want to unpack, that the authors talk about, and that you can work the sources into your own argument about, you are free to do. The two articles are separate. Nicholas Carr doesn't talk about Mitchell Stevens. Mitchell Stevens doesn't talk about Nicholas Carr. But nevertheless, we treat these articles as if they are part of a similar conversation because they're talking about similar topics. So your job is to not just point to page 47 and say, see, Nicholas Carr mentions Mitchell Stevens, because that's not going to happen. Your job is to say, Nicholas Carr says this, Mitchell Stevens says this. Maybe that's similar, or maybe that's completely different, or maybe that complicates each author's idea. So how the articles connect is up to you, but that's your job to figure out how the articles connect, explain those connections, and then contribute your own ideas to the conversation. Speaking of, remember that everything is an argument, and there are now three voices in the conversation, you and the two articles, the two authors. Your synthesis essay should include analysis of Carr's and Stevens' arguments in service of conveying your own position. Use specific examples from Carr and Stevens to support your analysis and your argument. What are they saying, and then what do you say? This is really the foundation of all academic work. Okay, you're looking at what other people have said, what other people have written, and you're thinking critically about it, and then you're adding your voice to that conversation, either clarifying what they say, or complicating what they say, or building upon what they say. All of those things are fine. You can agree, disagree. Okay, it doesn't matter. But you're just trying to add your voice to the conversation. Let's see, what else? So in terms of how you organize this paper, there are a couple of different ways you can do it. Because you're using two sources, right, you're going to have your own original thesis statement about technology, the internet, Google, reading, whatever it is, your own original thesis statement about your topic. To help you prove that topic, you're going to want to cite the articles, right, to help you prove whatever it is you're proving. Now, whatever it is you're arguing. Now, you can do that in a couple of ways. You can cite the article and agree with it, and that supports your point. You can cite the article and disagree with it and explain why the article is wrong, or something in between. And all of that is fine. What I encourage you to do is try to do the kind of synthesis that Nicholas Carr and Mitchell Stevens do in their own articles, which is try to make connections between the two sources within single paragraphs, within single sections of your paper. In other words, don't just make your argument, right, your thesis statement, and then talk about Nicholas Carr and just Nicholas Carr, and then in your next paragraph talk about just Mitchell Stevens and only Mitchell Stevens, right? That's not really connecting the two articles. You're using both, but you're missing that connective piece. You're connecting them both to your argument at the top, but you're not really connecting them to each other. So what I encourage you to do is try to figure out how these two articles connect to each other and then try to synthesize them within single paragraphs of your argument. And Nicholas Carr and Mitchell Stevens do that throughout. And we'll try to look at some examples on Monday. But notice how they cite this person, and then they explain how those ideas relate to each other, and then use that relationship to support their own ideas. Okay? Pretty hardcore. All right, so make sure you have a clearly defined thesis statement. You should be able to point to a specific sentence in your introduction that tells your reader what you're going to be arguing. Your paper, that is your grade, depends on a strong thesis statement, so feel free to run yours by me. You're required to use 3 to 4 quotes from the article to support your argument. 3, 4, 5 is probably fine. Remember that we're interested in setting up quotes properly, citing them, of course, and thoroughly explaining and analyzing them. Don't just repeat what the author says. Try to analyze what they say, break it down, figure out how it works, right? Get into their ideas and really kind of shake things up, complicate things, right? Tell us something new that we didn't know before, that we didn't notice before. You don't need to do any additional research, and I do not want you to. You're going to have a works cited page. Both of the articles will be on that works cited page. They should be in alphabetical order. See me or your syllabus for help with MLA formatting as usual. Okay, so I'm very tired, as I'm sure you are, after this vigorous class that we had this evening. So I'm going to sign off before I start over-explaining and confusing you more. If you have any questions about anything I said in the video or anything I did not say in the video, please do post in course questions and I would be happy to clarify. So keep up the great work. You guys are doing an awesome job so far, and I will see you guys on Monday.